Hello, welcome back to All Today. We have returned after a summer hiatus. We had company. Cheston and I's dad came into town, so we took the time to spend with him. So, guys, how have you been?
I'm good. How about yourself?
I'm all right. I'm getting used to having the house alone again, which is it's one of those things like you're always glad to have company, but when they leave, it's like all right, I can walk around in my underwear again, that sort of thing. So,
Do you actually do that? Do people do that?
yeah,
Really?
People that don't have kids.
yeah. I don't have kids. People don't come to my house, so if I have a chance to not wear clothing, I'm gonna take it. It's a pretty visual for all of you that don't know what I look like.
I never, I never knew I never knew that was a thing people did. I just thought they always said that.
But you're a friend with like the biggest perpetrator of it, the man known as Goose.
Yeah, but he's a different breed. I don't.
He truly
He does a
is.
lot of things I don't think normal people do.
Fair enough.
He doesn't use towels when he gets out of the shower.
Yeah.
Well, who doesn't like to air dry? I, for one, big fan.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Lately, with the weather around here, air drying actually might be more cost effective.
I would say so.
Just like stand outside for 2 seconds and you'll be good to go.
Yeah, that's what it feels like.
Not for me. It's monsoon season out here.
Oh, look at you having a monsoon season.
Been like in the high 90s over here.
Yeah, the rest of us just baking in the heat.
So, who wants to start with what they've been playing? It's been a while, so I figure everyone's got something.
Even Setzer has something. Setzer, what have you played?
Well, I've been playing two games lately, and in retrospect, I'm really struck by just how similar these games ended up being, despite how different they are. They are both first-person shooters, released about a decade apart, and they could not be more different mechanically, but they end up having some of the same technical issues.
Okay, can I guess before you say?
Absolutely. You already know one of them.
Oh, do I? I was going to say Cruelty Squad, so I guess it's not that.
No, it's not Cruelty Squad. I haven't played that. I want to, but I haven't yet.
Yeah, so I don't know, actually. I was going to say Cruelty Squad and Bioshock Infinite.
Nope.
I was gonna say Geist
Nope.
and say the Conduit for Wii.
Nope.
You nailed it.
Ah, man.
So what was it?
So, number one, Mech Warrior Online.
Ah,
Yeah.
Oh, that's
so
right.
was-
I remember now.
Yeah. I mentioned that like a few weeks ago, I think, in a text message, but this is a game from Piranha Games Industry or whatever, PGI. It's been around since about 2012, I want to say. And I was playing BattleTech, which is like the tactics game, and Mech Warrior 5, which is more of like a simulation-y shooter. And I was looking around and realized they had an online version where it's like multiplayer deathmatch kind of deal, right? And I've never really played a game quite like it. It's very unique mechanically, and just structurally when you're in the match. And there's just so much to explain. Like, I could spend all day talking about this game. But when you're outside of a match, this game is a dumpster fire.
really?
So there's about 100+ different mechs you can play as, right? And they have a very complicated system for like building your mech, different slots, different weights. You have to pack your own ammo and so on. And each mech has skills, which is like 7 different sphere grids with 236, I think, total nodes. And you can have 91 nodes active at any given time. And to purchase a node, you need a skill point, which can be either a mech skill point specific to that specific mech, or a general skill point that can be used on any mech. And each mech skill point must be purchased with 800 mech XP, unique to that mech, or 800 global XP that can be used on any mech. And it's like just out of control with the redundancy. The circuitous redundancy in this game is so out of control. And,
Like, do they offer an option to buy the EXP?
Oh, of course, you can pay real money for it. And it's based on a like decade-old version of CryEngine, so it's single-threaded, so it looks and runs like shit. Like even my 2060 spins up real loud, and my CPU is bottlenecked because it's single-threaded. So it's just this ridiculous technological cluster, and just a total design nightmare. But when you play it, there's nothing else like this game, and it is a lot of fun when you get into a good match. The downside is you have a lot of bad matches.
Oh yeah. Is it like a lot of people that like sunk money into it and are like whales and super good, or what?
Well, I would say the average age of the person playing this game is probably like 45 to 55.
I would. That's not surprising for
Yeah,
this
given
franchise.
the IP.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they have a very specific strategy when they play the game, okay? They load up on long-range missiles, which have a range of like 1,200 meters, the longest range weapons in the game. And you don't have to aim them, you just lock on, and you can share lock-on data with your allies. So you just like vaguely follow the lock-on and click the mouse button, and that's all you have to do. Now, the bad side to that is they're supposed to be playing like a tank when they load up on these like super heavy mechs. They're basically like the tank in an MMO, right?
Mm-hmm.
So imagine if the tank was like, oh yeah, you guys go on ahead and do whatever you do. I'm going to sit in the corner of the map and just poke away with ranged attacks, okay? Is that cool with you guys? And it totally disrupts the flow of the game because you can't like play very aggressively. It's called the Lerm Boat, the Boomer Barge.
Oh boy.
And these guys, they'll start the match and they'll come on voice comms and go, well, boys, I've brought the lerms. Bring me some targets. And that's how you instantly know this match is going to suck.
You're making me want to play this game despite what you're saying. It's like playing with a bunch of
I recommend it.
playing with a bunch
Despite
of
what I'm
boomers.
saying- yes, despite what I'm saying, I recommend trying this game because it is so unique. And when you get into a good match, it's like nothing else I've ever played. Because it really is just it needs work on its meta, right?
Yeah.
How the weapons are balanced to discourage people from long-range weapons in this game are very, very powerful, and they have the ability to there's a lot of mind games you have to play, and long-range weapons have the ability to really distort that because they're so powerful. But when you get into a match with a good mix and people who want to play aggressively, then you're gonna have a great time.
What would you say the ratio is of good to bad match?
I would say, I don't want to say 50-50. It because this game has such a small community, it really depends on what time you're playing and what day. Like, no joke, matches get way worse during weekends
What a shame.
and late night hours.
Yes, that
But-
sounds right.
Yeah,
Based on the clientele you're courting.
right. But I would say when you're in an optimal time zone, I would say 80% of your games are going to be good.
That's nice. And are they shortish?
I would say most matches take 5 to 10 minutes.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, why are you slogging through these bad matches? Because I was picturing some of those MOBAs, that have hour-long matches.
You're picturing Civ matches, 8 hours of meching around.
Yeah,
No,
I-
it's very quick. It's very quick. And there's no respawns. It's 12v12, no respawns. So once you die, you can just leave the match and play another
Oh,
one.
great.
Yeah.
Well, that's the one great contribution of Battle Royales. So
Yes, I agree.
Now,
I like that.
that being said, the mech you use to play that match is tied to that match, and you can't use that mech again until that match ends. So if you leave the match early, you have to pick a different mech to play your next match
What?
until that one ends.
That's
Yeah.
kind of a shitty.
why?
It's ridiculous. Like I said, this game is full of baffling decisions like that.
I guess you better have one or two you're good with.
Is this a backdoor Nintendo game?
Well, I don't know. It makes me want to pop open my Monster Energy drink, play some Play some battle royales with my old buddies. It's a good time.
My
Load up
55
the
to
boomer
60-year-old
barge.
buddies.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Hey boys, it's just like that high school football game, eh? Yep. You stand back and bring the receivers to me.
Use 80% good matches. I'd say 20% vaccination rate among clientele.
Ooh.
Pretty much. Yeah, the other day
Yeesh.
I was playing a match, and one of my allies brought a mech that was painted like all white, and some boomer chimes in over the mic. Well, that mech looks like a ghost. Someone scared the paint off him. Who you gonna call? And some other guy chimes in, Frank Sinatra? And so I said, who?
I
Over the
love this
mic, really
community.
incredulously. and he goes, you don't know who Frank Sinatra is? Boy, who are you gonna call? And someone else goes, Dan Aykroyd? And I was like, oh yeah, wasn't he in that Ghostbusters movie a few years ago? And he goes, are you talking about the girl one, the girl Ghostbusters? And I said, I don't know, what's the difference?
Oh no.
Oh my god, you don't know about Ghostbusters?
Oh,
Great.
I love this community.
Yeah, actually, you've
Yeah,
totally
yeah.
turned me around with this.
They're so
I know.
cool.
That's one of my favorite parts is just conversing with these people.
Just a bunch of dad jokes thrown all around.
Like, I would say 1 out of 3 matches makes me, like, lose my shit laughing out loud at some of the shit these people say.
Yeah, boomers are good company sometimes. You could do worse.
I'd say. I take that over children.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I can tell you all about that.
I bet you can.
I teach, in case anybody was listening to that and thought I was a pedophile.
Well, you might be in the Fortnite, so it's possible.
No. No.
No, I'm
No.
not.
Definitely not.
And so, what was the second game you've been playing?
Well, over the past few days, I've been playing Halo Infinite. I got invited to the tech preview.
Oh yeah, that's the one. Okay, I knew that.
Wait.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought I had heard about this, but I was very confused. So,
Yeah.
how did you get invited to this? Because
I
I
signed up on the
regularly
website.
fillet Microsoft on this podcast, so I feel like I should be getting a little Halo Infinite slipped my way.
Just sign up on their Halo Waypoint website.
Oh, that's a lot.
I did that a couple months ago, and sure enough, I got my invite in the email.
So, what do you
Oh.
think?
Well, much like Mech Warrior Online, I have mixed feelings.
That you know what? Hey, I'll take that because Halo Infinite could have been a trash fire, so mixed feelings is better than trash fire.
Yeah, and I'll say this, it is not a trash fire.
Good.
Much like Mech Warrior Online, playing the game when you're in a match and you're running around and you shoot mans and you're playing the game, that is sublime. It is very good. There are a couple things that annoy me, but notwithstanding, overall, I would say Halo Infinite's gameplay is very good, and a very bright future for Halo. So this tech preview is just 4v4 with 4 players versus 4 bots.
Mm-hmm.
And there's only 2 maps, and there's a limited selection of weapons and power-ups. But already, I feel really confident about the gameplay. When they start opening up for PvP, and they start adding, more items and more weapons and more maps, and there's no vehicles in this demo, so I'm really eager to see how vehicles work. I think that the sandbox for Halo Infinite is going to be really similar to what I love about Halo 3, which is just the total chaos and, unpredictability and variety of it. So I'm really looking forward to playing this game. That being said, much like Mech Warrior Online, once again, the things surrounding that gameplay, that non-match experience, right, are very disappointing. I played on PC, in case, you can guess, and the performance is atrocious. The UI is a mess. It's very messy. It doesn't work or look right half the time. Like textures will be missing, icons are missing, and they just have that like bright pink square. You know what I mean? The stability is very poor. I had multiple crashes. I was really quite shocked to see, like, after 6 years, this is the quality of the PC port. And I realized that this is a, preview. It's not a demo. It's not a beta. They warn you this is an unfinished product.
And it could also be, like, internally they could have versions well beyond this, too.
Oh, yeah,
I heard it's 2 months old, so...
Yeah.
Assuming some progress has been made.
I would assume, I think it's safe to assume there's been improvements and progress, but if this were a recent build, like, I would be really concerned if 6 months or 4 months was all they had to polish this, because it was very bad.
And this game was supposed to release last year.
Yeah, exactly. What stood out most to me was dynamic resolution scaling, where if the game detects that performance is dipping, it renders the next several frames at a lower resolution. So, like, I'm playing at 2560 by 1080. It might say, okay, let's render the next few frames at, I don't know, 1280 by 800, right? Or some other low resolution.
Your Steam
and we'll
Deck
scale them
resolution.
up to fill your monitor, which creates a very blurry image. The DRS makes this game look like a funhouse mirror, and you can't disable it. I mean, it looks like someone smeared Vaseline all over my computer screen or something. It's out of control. And if this game is going to succeed on PC, then it really needs to get that together.
Well, I hope it does.
Yeah, I mean, from what I hear, it's very performant and very stable on Xbox. So, I'm sure given time they can refine that on PC. I just, my confidence that they can make it there by launch later this year, pretty low, to say the least. Pretty low.
Well, I mean, to be fair, this company's given you no reason to have faith in them. So
Right.
I'd say the fact that you're at least having fun is a solid. So
Yeah, I mean, once again, technical issues notwithstanding, the gameplay is very fun. The sandbox looks like it's going to be very fun once it opens up. So I'm optimistic about the game overall, but I don't know how this is going to turn out on PC at launch.
are you day one?
Nope.
Oh my god.
I am never day one on any game.
Oh,
because
I
I
see.
was day one on Spore, and
Oh yeah,
we all
that
know
killed
how
you.
that turned out.
Yeah. Very poorly.
Yep.
Well, props to you.
Yeah.
I'm glad you got to play it.
Me too. I enjoyed my time with it. It's a lot of fun, but it needs some polish.
Well, at least they have a little time. Not much, but a little.
I mean, we don't know. What are they targeting? December? What did they even say? I don't think they said.
Holiday 2021.
So
Yeah,
I would say December. I mean, it's not slipping again. I would hope not.
I wouldn't think. I mean, especially now that the tableau has been cleared for them.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's no games being released this year. The only thing in December I think is Dying Light 2, which is
Right,
guaranteed for a delay.
Yeah.
There's no way that's coming out. So
If I were them, I'd look at Horizon being pushed and go, all right, this is our chance.
Horizon competing with Zelda again.
Well, assuming
that
Zelda doesn't
and,
get delayed.
November, I want to say, is Halo CE's 20th anniversary.
Oh yeah, so you got to
So I'm
hit
guessing
that.
they
I
wanna
feel like,
coincide with
yeah, it seems likely.
All right, Cheston, what have you been up to?
All right, I've got 3 hands.
Keep in mind, one of these things is something I'm probably gonna talk about too. So
Wait, no, I'm not talking about that. I'm saving that. Now, I've got 3 hands. I have in one hand, and don't ask, it's a terrible mutation. I'm very sensitive. In one hand, I have something mediocre. In one hand, I have something good. And in one hand, I have something great. Derek, pick a hand.
what's great?
Oh, what's great? Okay. Well, I didn't want you to start with that, but I'll start with great. Fine. I've kind of got 2 things in great that I won't really talk much about either because they're very old. I played a 1994 Game Boy game on my 1994 Game Boy. Yes,
Of
that's
course,
where I
if
played
that's
it.
a ticket.
Yes. It's called Donkey Kong 94. Do you know anything about this game?
It's actually called Donkey Kong. The 94
It is actually just called Donkey Kong,
yeah.
but it's among the people who know what they're talking about. They add 94 on because it shares the same name as a very different game.
I literally knew nothing about this until I was, like, I have like YouTube videos playing in the background while I work. And Scott the Woz came on, and they talked about Donkey Kong 94, and they showed gameplay after the original Donkey Kong. Like, oh, something's going on. There's more to this game than this Donkey Kong,
Right.
the arcade.
Yes, I have heard over the past year or so, listening to plenty of different podcasts or YouTube shows, this game always comes up when people talk about the Game Boy, and I had never touched it because I don't. I mean, I like Donkey Kong, but I'm not like crazy about it. I don't really like high score games that much. And so I finally decided to check it out, and it's like a Kojima style gotcha game. Not gotcha as in like scamming you. Gotcha as in like, oh, you expected one thing and then you got another. I would have loved to have seen a kid in 1994 pop this one on their Game Boy, because the first 4 stages are literally just like the Donkey Kong arcade game, and it even like dresses it up like it. It has the same start screen and a lot of similar things. It just looks like that game, but worse because it's on weaker hardware. Pea green looking game and all that stuff as you would on the Game Boy. And then you beat that 4th stage and Donkey Kong pops right up Shawn Michaels style. And all of a sudden you go to a world map, and all of a sudden you're on stage 1-1 in what seems to be a long line of different stages. And each stage, instead of being like a traditional Donkey Kong level, it is a puzzle box of sorts where you're popped onto a screen. There's usually just like one screen at the beginning, and you have a door and a key, and you need to get the key to the door. And as you continue to play, of course, it stacks different mechanics on top of the other, but it's a really neat platformer that's very puzzle heavy, but it has the mechanics of the arcade Donkey Kong with a few twists here and there, which means that it's a really fun puzzle platformer. Like, it just feels really good, even for a Game Boy game, especially for a Game Boy game. And it's the kind of thing that if it was on a portable system, like if Nintendo released good games on their online service instead of just whatever the hell Jelly Boy is, like, this is the kind of game that you would just lose yourself in. Like, you would just keep thinking, oh, one more stage, one more stage. It is very, I don't like the word addictive. It's very engaging. It makes you want to keep going and going for a while. So that's a neat game. I like swerves in games. I like when a game really catches you off guard. And even though I knew that this game was different than it was billed as, because I had heard so much praise for it, I was still taken aback by how different it was. So I heartily recommend this one to Derek, not Setzer, as you can expect. So
I'll play it one day.
yeah, I want to get one of those. Well, you're going to get a Steam Deck, which we'll talk about later. But, they have a lot of these retro portables on the market now. And I kind of want to get one so I can play this in a form factor where I'm not using my keyboard and playing on a computer monitor, because it's just not the way to play that kind of game. But that's a great game, and also great Yoshi's Island, which I won't say much about. I've been playing that on my Switch kind of off and on between bigger games. And I liked that game as a kid, and it's always been hard for me to go back to because the Yoshi brand is so sour at this point. Like, every single Yoshi game released sucks for different reasons.
Well, my problem with Yoshi's Island is that I find it impossible to play with anyone in the vicinity because that Baby
Really?
Mario cry is so obnoxious.
Yeah,
The first
it's
time
so effective.
I played it on the SNES Classic whenever that first came out, and my wife heard it, and she was like, "What the hell is that?" And that's the last time I played Yoshi's Island with noise around her. I was
It gets a reaction from everybody. My wife too was commenting on it because I had never played it around her, and I lost the baby for a minute, and he was just losing his mind, and she was like, "That is the worst sound I've ever heard." And it's effective.
It's effective, but
It's like the heart beep in Zelda when you're below a certain
don't get
threshold,
me started.
and you have that beating, and you're just like, you want to do anything to make it stop.
Yes, it's too effective because it makes me not want to play with anyone in earshot.
I embrace the madness and let them hear it. I think that game is crazy good, though. Coming back to it and playing it differently than I did before. It's really a game that benefits when you stop and explore. That's kind of what they want you to do. It's not like a traditional Mario. There's no timer. They're not trying to speed you through. They want you to look for all the collectibles. And there's a lot of them. It's really a pain in the ass to get 100% completion on those levels, to be honest. But it gives you a reason to go back and play it, which obviously back in the day would have been important, given that you might have only played like 2 games in a year, and you had to make them last.
You spent like $90 on this piece of shit
Right.
SNES cart.
Yeah, so Yoshi's Island, no surprise, I think it's wonderful. Also, one of the best looking games ever. So just let that sit with you for a minute. So I still got 2 hands left. I've severed that third hand. What do you want now, mediocre or good?
Mediocre. Mediocre.
Right. I was hoping you'd say mediocre. So I bought the new Mario Golf to play with my brother, who didn't end up visiting. He likes golf, and I thought it'd be fun to play at night when he wasn't working. And then he did not come. So then I was left holding the Mario Golf bag, if you will. And
For those wondering, we have another brother. He's not talking about me.
No. No. Derek would also have played Mario Golf with me, but I didn't offer. But I would. Either way, this game has gotten a lot of flack since it came out. And some of it is really deserved and some is not. The thing about the game is that at its base level, it's pretty good. It's a golf game, so it's kind of hard to mess up too much. They did change the mechanics a little bit. And Derek, you know how in like Mario Golf, you press the A button to raise your club.
Yeah.
And then you press the A button to set your power. And then you press the A button a third time to set your accuracy.
Yeah, it's a pretty good system.
Okay, so they got rid of the third one. So
It's just a 2-stop.
Well, so you raise your club with the button press, and then you set your power, and then instead of setting your accuracy, 2 things happen. While you wind up your hit, because after you hit your button the second time, you have to watch the swing animation. While that happens, you can tilt the joystick in either direction to add curve in different directions. They've always had spin that you could add to a hit, but I don't think they've ever let you just like curve the ball Wanted style. Wanted being that crappy looking movie I never saw. You know what movie I'm talking about?
No.
Angelina
Curve the
Jolie, she's
bullet?
like spinning bullets. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that. So that's neat. I mean, I don't often find it that useful, probably because I'm not good at this game. But I still like even analyzing it as someone who isn't good. I just can't see the situation where it's that useful. Like it's usually better just to hit it straight and add some spin to get it to go where you want.
I don't like that they took away the accuracy press.
So here's what they did for the accuracy press, and this is a mixed bag. Definitely more on the negative side, I think, than the positive. So instead of the third click to set accuracy, the game now somewhat randomly determines your accuracy.
Oh, I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm not playing this shit.
That's
Well, hold
Nintendo,
on.
baby.
Yeah, so hold on. So you do have some determination because if the hit bar at the very top has what looks like a wave, and the more power you apply at the top of your swing, the more entropy you introduce into your swing. So the more likely it is that you might shank it a little bit. You're never gonna like shank it totally, but you might hit a little bit off of what you want. But that bar, that wave only extends to like the top, I don't know, 10%. So the idea is that you're making a gamble. If you want to hit with full power, you're sacrificing some of your accuracy. And if you don't want to hit for full power, if you're really more concerned, like, if you're driving the ball, you probably don't need to worry about accuracy as much. But if you're trying to hit on the green, you might want to use the club where you can hit for a little more power without entering that danger zone. So, I mean, like you, I think that's kind of more of a bad change than a good change.
That's a terrible change.
Because the other games did punish you for choosing a more powerful shot. It made the slider a little bit harder to click on its return to set your accuracy. I mean, I know why they did it, because they want these games to appeal to more people, and I guess they think that third click might just be a little too fast for some people, and it's not really fun to duff the ball, like
Well,
hit
then
it 2 feet.
give an option. Like, let me play classic
Yeah,
style.
I think that's probably where it's at. I think you should probably add an option. And this game actually has a lot of options, which is one of the things I really like about it. Like you can set so many different things. It's weird that this is the one thing they did not decide to change. And I think it's because of the curve mechanic. Personally, I would get rid of that and just bring back the other accuracy if you want it, and if you don't want it, then that's fine. So that's whatever. I still think it plays very well. Like it runs. All right, it's very smooth. It's fun. It's like it's golf. Whatever. If you like golf, this is fine.
Oh, yeah, but it's keeping on that Nintendo trend of releasing, well, not just Nintendo, video game industry wide, releasing unfinished games and then giving free updates.
Well, I haven't
to
even got
compensate
to
for
that yet, Derek. I was just about to get to that.
Well, I didn't know. I thought you were
Butthead.
about done. So
No, I was just talking about the good part, which is the gameplay, and I spent most of it talking about a thing I don't like. So, the problem with the game, as Derek so rudely spoiled, is that this game is like, even for a Nintendo sports game, this thing is pretty bare bones. So, you open up the menu, which has 4 buttons on it, which, hey, I'm a minimalist at heart. I'm okay with that. But, the 4 things are options and stats. Woohoo! My favorite modes. And story mode, which I'll talk about. And just play and ask golf. Not ask golf, but, golf ask golf.
yes.
I'm going to play 18 holes, or 9 holes, or 3 holes, whatever. So the story mode is bad. I don't like it, and I don't know if I'm going to stick with it. It's just
only like 3 hours, isn't it?
it's not. I know it's not very long, but it makes you play as your me, which is whatever. You're building your stats, and the stat building is fun. The problem is that it just has you do things just to do them, and there doesn't seem to be like a rhyme or reason to it. Like it's just kind of slow in that RPG style, Nintendo RPG style, where you just are so bored. Like there's a part where you do a round in a tournament, and you have to get a certain score, and I did. And then it's like, okay, all right, the next match is tomorrow, so I'll see you tomorrow. And then it's like, okay, now you have to go to bed. And then you go to your house and you go to bed, and then you wake up, and then you walk back to the course and you do it again. There's no reason. There's no reason for you to have to walk back to your bed. There's no dialogue. Nothing happens. It's not like it's in there for realism, but you're playing golf with a ghost and a little short person with a mushroom head and a football player who throws baseballs. I don't really know who they're going for with the little realism touch there, but it isn't me. So that sucks. And also, they want to shove their new gimmick in all over the place. The new gimmick in this game is speed golf, which is golf, but you run between your hits. And I haven't played this online, so I don't know if there's more to it than that. But in the story mode, all it means is you're going to hit the ball, and when you hit the ball, you're going to run to the ball. And then you're going to hit the ball again, and then you're going to run to it again. And you're hitting it at the same time as 2 other people, so it's kind of messy. So you have other people hitting at the same time as you, which I'm not opposed to if I'm playing and just funning around with friends. But in the context of the story mode where you're playing serious tournament golf, you would never do that at the same time. It would be terrible, and it wouldn't be very relaxing, and your nerves would be frayed. So I don't know why they would do it other than to make you do their new thing that they just want you to do as much as possible. So that sucks. I don't like the story mode. And like Derek said, it's 3 hours long, and I'm probably not even going to finish it. I really don't have any drive to do so. And if you don't want to play story mode, your only other option is, besides online, is just playing golf. And the motivation for doing so is liking golf, so that's good. And at first you can unlock courses, and there are 7 courses. So once you've unlocked the 7th course, there's really not much to do unless you want to grind for all the clubs, for all the characters, but more than likely, you have one character you like, and you're just going to play as them. So there's really not a purpose to you unlocking the best clubs for all the different characters. So there's really no reason for you to play. The online mode doesn't have any reason for you to play. There's no tournaments or anything like there used to be yet. So that's, not doing much.
Well, that's a shame because Mario Tennis was similarly barren but the online was so good that it
Yeah,
was worth the
online
price
was
of
so
admission.
good. It was one of my favorite games of that year for the online only, and
Yeah.
I thought this could be the same, but there is no online. And I'm hoping they add it with one of their DLC packages because they're doing free DLC like they did for Tennis. Because
Okay,
they released this
unfinished
game. Yeah, they released this game before it was done, and so they're gonna pad it out with some content on the backside, which is whatever. But
I don't
they've
like
this,
it.
I know this game has been out for a month now, and there hasn't been anything. Like they've shown a new map and a new character, but they have yet to actually make good on that. So I regret this purchase. Is what I'm saying. This is not a great game. It has the bones of a decent game, but a lot of weird choices were made. That means that this will probably be a game I pretty much only play when people are around, and by people I mean our other brother, who will probably play this with me, and that's about it.
So stick with the N64 version.
I still like the 64 version. People swear by the GameCube one, but honestly, to me, those Mario Sports games peaked. Well, the golf and tennis peaked on 64 and have only gotten worse.
Oh, yeah.
So,
The Golf on 64, I like all the dumb characters they give you.
yeah, they're just regular people.
Yeah, and like how you unlock, like the last character you unlock is Mario, which is strange.
Yeah, you'd
But I
never
like
do
it.
that today. Yeah. Yes, well, we like unlocking things. Most people don't. So.
Yeah.
Oh, I should also add, because Setzer's asleep here, the graphics in this game are hilarious. Like, on a normal course, it looks fine, but on some of the later courses, like there's a Bowser's theme course, it has some of the worst textures I have ever seen. they are comically gross, and I don't usually notice these things, so if I'm catching on to it, there's gotta be a problem. I don't really know why, but the resolution on this game oscillates really heavily, and sometimes you just end up looking at one of the ugliest Switch games I can think of.
So you're playing a Switch game, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yes, it is a Switch game. It is a very, very much a Switch game. Surprisingly, this is the one that needs more power and not some of their other games. I kind of think Camelot has no idea what they're doing. So that's the mediocre game, which leaves me with one more, because I've gone on long enough, so I'll go as quick as I can on this. And that is... God, I'm going to get this name wrong, because I can never remember the exact name, which is promising.
Ori and the Blind Forest.
No, I love that game. That's a fantastic game. This game is called Plague Tale? A Plague Tale Innocence, or Plague Tale of Innocence. I really don't know what the actual name is. What I can tell you is that this game is good going on possibly great, kind of depending how it shakes out. If I were to give a elevator pitch, I would say it's a prestige game without a prestige budget, which in this case means that it's a prestige game that doesn't release only on PlayStation platforms. So I can play it, which is kind of why I'm playing it, because I had been jonesing for one of those very cinematic games, but don't have a PlayStation, and not really interested in buying one just to play prestige games, especially because I think they've gotten worse on PlayStation as they've gone on in age. So this one is like those, but with a lower budget. It doesn't really show in some ways, like visually. Keep in mind, I mostly play Switch games, and games made in 1998. This is the best looking game I've played in a very long time. It looks great. They just patched it for 4K and 60 frames per second. And both of those things make it look quite excellent. And I appreciate that. It's got some great atmosphere. It's set in medieval Europe, so you're walking around a lot of dingy castles, and you can really smell the dinge, if you will. So, in that way, it doesn't feel like it's budget. I think where you kind of see the budget is in, they don't have like any amazing voice talent. Like, the voice actors do fine, but they're just a bunch of nobodies.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
I hear the same damn voice actors in every game, so it's a nice little break.
And it's also, from what I can tell, what I think it's going to be a little shorter, which, hey, another thing I kind of like. I think a lot of these games have gotten a little bloated. They just started to add on way too many elements they don't need. And this game doesn't have any of those. It has no side quests. No crazy RPG mechanics. It is a very straightforward game. You walk, you stealth, you have to you every once in a while you find a workbench and you can upgrade your stuff, and that is literally it. There's
Uh-oh.
nothing else.
Crafting. Uh-oh.
It's very
Sounds like fun.
it's very minor. You are always stumbling onto the supplies, and every time you get to a workbench, you have enough. And honestly, you
That's
don't
the
even need.
excuse I use for Horizon Zero Dawn. That like almost word for word.
Is it?
And it didn't work on me.
Well, that game is way more bloated. This is like so straightforward. Like you are literally walking through very linear areas. So if you don't have enough supplies to get whatever you want, you're fine. I mean, and you're not doing it very often, so it doesn't really get in the way. So, anyways, I guess to say what the game is, because it's a prestige game, so obviously it's more about the story and the things around the story. So it's mid 1300s. Don't know much about medieval times. Not my time period that I know much about. It's set during the Hundred Years' War. You're like a French girl, 14-year-old French girl. You're in France, and you are vaguely royal, I think. And you have a 4-year-old brother who is nebulously sick, and the French Inquisition comes and kills all your family, and you see it, like that scene in Kill Bill where Lucy Liu watches her family killed in anime. It's like that, but not anime. And so that's the main story, is that you and your brother have watched your family die, and your brother's sick, and so you're trying to get help for whatever his disease is, but you don't
It's
know
a
what
plague.
it is.
It's a plague.
No, it's
It's
not.
called Plague Tale Innocence.
No, he doesn't have the plague.
Oh,
He has
man.
something. Yeah, he's something else that's weird. So that's the main plot. The other plot, which I imagine is going to start to coincide more with his sickness, which is not the plague, is the plague, because the plague is sweeping through Europe at this time, and so you see evidence of that. You see towns that are like totally run down. They have signs like exits painted on their doors to ward people from coming near because someone is sick. But this is like a supernatural super plague, spread by hell rats. So every once in a while, the game will just throw a bunch of rats at you, which is awesome. Like, the rat tech is crazy. You just have like a million rats on screen just scurrying about. And I have to say, it's really cool every time. It never fails to make me happy when those rats pop out of the ground. And that's the part of the game I really like, is the rats, because they give it a nice eerie vibe. You just never know when they're gonna pop out, and you're gonna have to get around them, and you can't kill them. So it's not like Last of Us where you're shooting out these zombies that are threatening you. You're having to ward away them with light. That's their weakness. You use fire and stuff like that to keep them at bay. You can also use them as a weapon, which is my other favorite thing. So sometimes when you're stealthing around, you can like throw some potions at your enemies that lure the rats, and then you can watch the rats literally pick the flesh off their bones, and then when you walk past that spot later, you'll see the skeleton where you sick the rats on them, which is, it's pretty great. I'm not gonna lie. So I am probably halfway through the game, so like 6 hours, I think. And the story is okay. A friend who tells me that it gets better. We'll see. He likes some of the Star Wars movies, so maybe not a reliable source. But I will say that for a game that does not have a AAA budget, and clearly wants to be The Last of Us, I think in some ways it does things that are more cool and more interesting than The Last of Us. And it's also on Game Pass, so I'm biased towards it in that sense because I didn't pay anything for it besides my subscription. So
If you like rats, you should play Dishonored.
Mm-hmm. They have
Yeah,
rat
but this
tech
has-
in that game too.
yeah, this has hell rats.
There are hell rats in
There are
that
hell
game
rats
too.
in that game.
Are they really?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I will have to check that out then. I'm really into the hell rats.
The
So
hell rat genre.
yeah, the hell rat genre. So I think this is a cool game that is very much under the radar. I know it got a sequel announced, so that must have done well enough. But it's not one you ever hear people talk about, despite the fact that people can't get enough of prestige games like God of War and Last of Us. So, if you have any inklings or any interest in that genre at all, I think it's at least worth a download. And
Well,
play.
yeah. When you told me about this, I confused it with Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, and which I called a boring game or something along those lines. So
No, I don't think this one's boring. I mean, the first 5 chapters are a little too straightforward, and it made me kind of worried. I thought it was going to be like every encounter was the same, where it laid out exactly what to do for you. But once I got past the first 5 chapters, which are not that long, 5 chapters sounds like a long time. That's probably like 2 hours. Once they set the table with all the different things you have at your disposal, it really gives you a lot of options with how you want to deal with things. And you can even stealth through most of it. Like it does actually give you the agency to stealth, where Last of Us a lot of times would force you into being a mass murderer, or Uncharted, would force you into being a mass murderer at some point. But you're playing as a 14-year-old French girl, so sometimes you might not want to kill everything in sight, and this game kind of lets you do that. Oh, it also makes you feel like you're weak because every enemy is a one-hit kill. You cannot, if an enemy attacks you, you are dead. So that's another thing I think that makes this game a little more interesting. It makes it have a little more impact and makes the stealth feel a little more necessary.
I see.
But I've said enough. I'm looking forward to playing more of this game. I've been very surprised by it.
All right. So I suppose it's my turn.
I suppose.
So I'm going to glaze over a couple things real quick. One, I played the Fire Emblem DLC finally. Released like last year, I think. I got it on sale. It's worth the money. Thought it was really good. I don't really have much to say beyond that. I also played Dragon Ball. I finished Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. I don't know if I said it on the podcast or not, but it is what it is. I like it. It's simple. It's stupid. It's worth the money for me, but I can see how other people don't love it. I want to get into this more later when I finish the game proper, but Disgaea 6 I think might be one of the laziest games ever made.
We just talked about Mario Golf.
Yes, but there are a lot of things that are like really questionable that I need to like get into in depth, and I haven't finished it yet, so I want to wait to see if it fixes things. I still love this game. I think it's a lot of fun, but I can discount all the cut corners. It's crazy. But I'll get into that a different day. The main thing I wanted to talk about was Skyward Sword.
Well, hey,
Hey,
I've also been
which
playing that.
I am at the very final dungeon. Yes,
okay.
I got there before the podcast and I saved. So I was like, well, I don't have time to do this. So I've done most everything. So I feel pretty safe about having an opinion about it at this point. And I think the Switch version makes it less annoying, which in turn makes the game good. Whereas before the game was annoying and not good. So
that's the line in the sand, annoying versus not annoying.
yes, they've made it less annoying, which turns out was the big problem with it because the original release had a ton of tutorial text, like a ton. Let's say you get like a crafting material, like it'll tell you what it is, and then you save and quit. When you reload the game and you get that same material again, it'll tell you what it is again, and it does that every time. It's very obnoxious after a while, and like things like the text speed is like insanely slow, and there was no way to speed it up, and the motion controls had to do all sorts of wacky movements, which worked in short bursts, but everything is motion controlled, so it gets very annoying after a while. It's just something that that needed, I don't know, some dumbing down, I suppose, and the remake did it. I still have a little bit of concerns. Like I think there are some areas that are really annoying to go through. Like Cheston went through the desert. He said he didn't hate it, but for me, it was really annoying. Like finding out where I could walk and managing your stamina gauge and all that fun stuff. So didn't like that. But generally speaking, I think it's a good game. It deserved the second chance. So I'm glad that it's getting that for some people.
I'm with you. I think the thing that's been most jarring to me is that when we talked about this before, which I think is the last time we recorded, I made mention of how like the motion controls weren't the problem with that game, and then as I've played it more, I'm like, actually, you know what? The motion controls were a problem because
They were,
it wasn't.
yeah.
I was just thinking of the sword play, which is fine, but it was things like you get like a little drone that flies around, and you have to fly from place to place in the sky, and all of those things were motion controlled. So it was just constantly doing something, or even something simple like stabbing forward with your sword. You have to do this motion like a kind of a straightforward jab, and it was so hard to get the Wiimote to tell what you were doing with that. And so this has been nice to have that all mapped to a stick.
Yeah, it's convenient.
Yeah.
The only move I struggle with is like this weird finishing move where you
Oh, Yeah, that is hard. I don't know why that is the way it is.
So I don't know what the deal with that is. But I don't remember it being hard on the Wii. So maybe that's the one motion control thing that's superior.
I think it's that they show you a little indicator for how to do it on the screen, but I find that those are often very bad at showing the motion. So I'm still not super clear on what the motion is I'm supposed to do.
Yeah. So it's frustrating. But other than that, I think it's worth your time, which is not something I thought I would say about Skyward
Yeah,
Sword.
no, I'm actually having a great time with it. I think there's definitely some things that I look at and say that are demonstrably worse than other Zeldas, like the overworld, like
That's
the
bad.
sky, the place in the sky. As when I say overworld, I'm referring to the skies. Is bad. It's just clearly slapped together.
Well, there's a
There's
reason why like Breath of the Wild is such a change of pace. Like this is like the most linear Zelda of all
Oh,
time.
this is more like an action game than it is a traditional Zelda. Which pros and cons. Like it's kind of neat to play a game like that. Like a Zelda style game that's more actiony than the others. It's a neat twist. But if you had waited 5 years or whatever from Twilight Princess to this game, and you were expecting more Zelda, I can kind of see why you would look at this and be annoyed, because
Right.
in a lot of ways it just isn't the Zelda that anybody would expect or want.
Well, and even though Ocarina of Time, Majora, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess weren't open, so to speak, they had the illusion of openness.
Yeah.
Like you could run around with your horse in the Hyrule Field, and it just felt like you were in control of where you're going. Whereas this is just like you're on rails. You're going
Yeah,
here, here. So
and it at least kind of felt lived in. Like it felt like a world. Like Ocarina of Time. I mean, it's not like it was amazing, but like you go to Kakariko Village and be like, yeah, people live here and do shit. Or you go to the town and you'd be like, hey, people live here. But in this game, outside of Skyloft, you're just like these little podunk islands just floating in the sky, and there's a guy who lives by himself with a 30-foot tall bamboo tree, and that's his whole life. And you're like, this doesn't feel authentic at all. It just feels like little vignettes stitched together to try and pad out this game.
that'll be fair. They do tell you the surface world, is
Well, I know why
uninhabitable.
the surface world is the way it is, but I feel like there's no reason the sky world doesn't have another town. You're telling me everybody lives on that little island for Skyloft? That's ridiculous.
Yeah, but I also feel like there's like less side things to do than usual. Like they do offer you side quests, but if you look at it like I feel like they start you off with more heart pieces than you normally would, just to hide the fact there's less to grab.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if this was rushed,
I
perhaps.
don't know. I feel like it was delayed a billion
It
times.
was, but it's so some of those things like the side quests are literally just you swing your sword at a box to make it go into the sky, and then you go to the sky and you find that box, and lo and behold, it's a heart piece. Like that's it. It's not really a side quest. It's more of a collectible, which is fine. Again, it's a different than other Zeldas.
They love to have you do a thing called dowsing to look for things.
Oh, I just never
So
do it.
well, yes, but they do that for like the boxes you're talking about to unlock the treasure chest above. They have that for treasures, so there's all sorts of collectibles if you want to get them, but you don't really have to.
Yeah, I have. I honestly don't know what a lot of them do. I've caught like every bug in the game, and
You
I have
sell
like
them.
multiples of them. Where do you sell them?
There's a dude's room in Skyloft. If you sell it
Really?
to him at night,
Oh, man, I'm gonna be rich. I've got a lot of bugs.
they do it in a way where they're like, "I'm only buying these three today."
Oh,
So
I thought I could craft like maybe make a slingshot out of
like
ants or
like a
something.
bug slingshot. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know. Come on, that'd been great.
But it runs at 60 frames per second, which should be obvious. It's a freaking Wii game. But I was watching like a Digital Foundry thing about it, and it just seems like this one's a lot more convenient because like in the Wii version, you open a door, it's like 8 seconds of loading time, and this one it's like 1 second. So
Oh
it's
yeah.
like, how did I put up with all this freaking loading?
Yeah, this is not like Majora and Ocarina, which some people will say like, "Oh, I'm not gonna touch the remakes, the original version of where it's at." There is never, ever, ever a reason you should ever play this game on the Wii
And
now.
this
There's
this is
no
the
way.
This is the definitive release,
Yeah.
easily.
The Wii version is so bad compared to this, it's ridiculous.
Yes, there are there aren't very many new features, to be fair, but they took out all the annoying stuff. So
Yes. It's like it's like that stereotypical 80s movie thing where the librarian's wearing her glasses.
takes the
And
glasses
she
off.
takes them off and you're
It's
like,
a
wow.
hottie.
Yeah,
Skyward Sword's a hottie. Who would have guessed?
that's right. A hottie with a body.
Yeah. Well, I like me some Zelda, and it's nice to play like a linear game instead of since all we get is open world stuff anymore. So
Yes.
I'm okay with that.
Yep, I agree.
But as for what's next, one of two things. It's either going to be Great Ace Attorney or The World Ends With You Neo. So
I think I will be joining you on Great Ace Attorney. So
it depends
hopefully
on
you choose that.
what I'm feeling after I finish Skyward Sword, probably tonight. So we'll see. I'll let you know.
Plague Tale of Innocence.
No, that is not under consideration. I was going to recommend my wife play it until you mentioned that you get every hit's a one-hit kill. They're like, nope.
Well, I'll be honest, like, it's pretty easy not to get in those situations. Like, I've only been killed probably 3 times.
Okay.
And you do have some flexibility. Like, I was spotted yesterday, and you have enough tools at your disposal, you can find a way out of it. Like, again, I had the Rattler, and I ran a little bit away from it, and threw my Rattler back behind me, and then watched the Hell Rats devour my Nemesis.
Huh.
Which is so satisfying.
Well, sounds it.
God, it's so... actually, the more I've talked about it, the more I'm selling myself on liking it more than just a little bit.
Well, I've also been playing World of Warcraft, StarCraft 2, Diablo, Call of Duty World at War.
Boy, do I have some bad news for you.
Yeah. It's time to get onto the news segment, so let's just get the elephant in the room out of the way. Well, let's just put it like this. There's a big lawsuit. I think there's like thousands of complaints against Activision Blizzard. It's a very messy situation that we really can't really add anything to. All I'll say is that I guess I can't speak for everyone, but I think Activision Blizzard is a scummy company, and I think you should avoid giving them money probably forever. I think people that are doing like one-day boycotts or whatever are pathetic. It's not really showing I don't know, it's not really showing any resistance if you're like, oh, I'm not buying your thing for one day. But I think I texted Setzer about this, saying like, oh, I think they're done. And he's like, no, they're not. And the more I thought about it, he's right. Like, people are just going to forget about it.
Yeah.
When Diablo 4 comes out, you're going to get all the people that were all high and mighty about it. They're like, oh, let's go to BlizzCon, see Diablo 4. So
I mean, more realistically, in a few months when Diablo 2 comes out, you'll probably have a lot of those people back on board.
Let me give some context to what I said there. I think that, this will disrupt some people's purchase of their games for the foreseeable future, if not forever. That being said, we're talking about an absolutely massive audience. And, there's a new Call of Duty coming out later this year. Do you think 1/10 of these people will ever even know about this lawsuit?
no, and not only do I not think that, I think people that care about it will also cave in. It reminds me of when everyone was boycotting Modern Warfare 2, and then they just like you have the Steam like playlist and everyone's playing it. It'll just be like that again. It's frustrating.
Well, I will say it's important to keep that kind of, number in context. Like I said, there are so many people who play these games that even if all of the people you ever see or hear about saying, this is the last straw for me, even if those people do stick to their word, there's still so many people to make up for that it can still top the Steam charts, right?
Yeah, but neither here nor there. I mean, they're gonna go on, with or without a lot of people. It's just kind of, I mean, to put it lightly, it's a big bummer. This is all a lousy situation, and it's one of many of these situations, and it's just kind of a shame that this leisurely activity that for a lot of people is an escape from the real world can sometimes be a portal back into some of the worst aspects of the real world.
Yes, I don't know. I would say it irreparably harms the perception of older games by that company. Like, I
Yeah.
don't think I could go play like the Crash trilogy anymore or Spyro, like those things that I actually really enjoyed. Or even Sekiro, like last year, like it was published by Activision. Like I just don't want any part of what they're doing. It sucks.
Yeah, it sucks, and you know, one can only hope that this leads to at least some internal changes, and maybe 10 years from now they have a much better work culture. It seems pretty ingrained, so it seems like that is going to be pretty hard to do. But well, fingers crossed, and hopefully this gives some of those people in the lawsuit some amount of healing for what they had to endure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Warcraft 3 Reforged. If you ever needed any reason not to play it, there you go.
Yeah, God. Yeah, yeah, that's to hell with them and Ubisoft and whoever else.
Oh yeah, yeah. Ubisoft has similar problems, but
Yeah.
the big one was Activision Blizzard.
It just kept getting worse. It was
Mhm.
like you saw the lawsuit come out and you're like, well, that's pretty bad. And when you read a little bit more, it's like, wow, somebody, like, and it involves suicide. Like, oh, that's really bad. And then you get that picture of the Cosby suite, and you get the picture from their Facebook chat, and it's like, holy hell.
But I think we all agree we weren't really big fans of this company before this. This is like,
Yeah, China pandering is pretty bad.
but this is worse.
Unfortunately, every company does it.
Yeah.
So it's a little hard, but, not every company has an ingrained culture of abuse.
So I think
So
I
it's
speak
pretty
for all of
rough.
us when I say fuck Activision Blizzard. Am I right? Yeah. No?
Yes. You want to add Ubisoft to that? Like
And
tack 'em on?
Ubisoft. Yes. I keep
Yes.
forgetting that they're involved, but
Yeah, well, I mean, theirs is separate.
I also don't really like Ubisoft, so it's one of the
Yeah, no,
yeah.
it's that one's an easy pill to swallow. They kind of suck anyways, but that's not what it's about.
Yeah.
Whether or not their games are good or not, they enable some very bad people, which is unfortunate because some good people work there.
All right, so we got our spiel out there. We addressed it. Let's move on.
Well, the number one story this week is that Valve is once again throwing its hat into the hardware ring with the announcement of the Steam Deck.
It's a big
A
hat.
Switch-like form factor and Valve's Proton software combined to make a package some find compelling, but I remain unconvinced despite watching IGN's video interviews on the subject. What do you guys think?
Well, this appeals to me greatly. My favorite thing to do with the Switch is to play it in bed before I go to sleep. And with this, I can do that with PC games. Obviously, they're going to run at like lower, it's the screen, I think it's 800p. But I think you can run a lot of things with that. And for what I'm going to use it for, I see it as a good idea.
We like to be varied in our tastes and feelings here, so I'm going to be in the middle and say that I am mostly confused by the Steam Deck. I think it has potential because it certainly seems people who understand hardware, not me, have vouched for some aspects of this. So it seems like it should be kind of capable, which is nice because I know people don't like a lot of the things about the Switch's tech specifications, and this seems to answer a lot of those hopes and dreams people had for the Switch Pro. So that's cool. On the other side, I have pause when Gabe says in interviews that he thinks this thing is going to sell tons. I don't know. I don't know if I believe that.
Sold
I think,
out so far, but
well, I understand that,
Well, so
But-
is the Cybertruck.
it's true.
but this is a hot new technology, and I think there are definitely people for whom this device is appealing. There's no doubt. Like there are people who have avoided the Switch like the plague, like hell rats, because the Switch is a low spec portable that runs games poorly in a lot of cases. And this doesn't seem to do that. And, a lot of people complain that the Switch doesn't have certain AAA games. And hey, they showed in the advertisements this plays games like Control natively. It doesn't even need cloud technology like the Switch does. So obviously I think there are people for whom that is very appealing. I just don't know how many of those people there are, because from my memory in a historical context with portables, when you look at like the DS versus the PSP, there were plenty of people who really liked the PSP, which was more powerful. But at the end of the day, the DS was the one that was a huge, unrivaled success because it offered a lot of games that were really ideal for the form factor. And the same was true for the 3DS compared to the Vita. Nobody wants to play Uncharted on the road. That's kind of just not an ideal way to play a cinematic game. And so the Steam Deck, its major advantage over the Switch is going to be exactly that. You can play these big AAA games on a portable screen, but I mean, do people really want? Are there a lot of people who really want to do that? Because me personally, I look at that and I look at the game they showed, Control, which I played, and I think about how unpleasant I think that would be to play on a portable screen. That game is so atmospheric. I wouldn't really want to play that on the couch or in bed. I want to play that on a big screen TV, which I know the Steam Deck can do. But I mean, at that point, you just play it on PC or on Xbox or PlayStation. So I think it's neat, but I also kind of don't think it's going to be the big runaway success that Gabe and a lot of other pundits have said.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think for a portable device, you need to attract casuals in order to be a success. Like, if you look at why the Switch is successful, a lot of people that play it only play like one or two games a year, playing like Animal Crossing, Stardew Valley.
Well, and I think it's a mixture for the Switch. It has that appeal, but it also has the games that, hardcore Nintendo fans crave. It doesn't leave their audience out like other past platforms have.
Yes, but I know so many people that like don't play video games that have a Switch.
Oh
It's
yeah,
just,
yeah.
and with the Steam Deck, like you're not going to get anyone that isn't at least mildly interested in games getting on. So that's an immediate hurdle. This what'll help it be successful is if like developers program games with like settings like one of the default settings is like low, high, Steam Deck, whatever. And if a lot of games get optimized, that would help. But asking developers to do extra work doesn't really work out. So I think
As the PS5 controller has shown.
yeah, yes, exactly. Like if you tell them to do things, they just won't do them.
But, I think it goes beyond just the graphics options. I mean, we're talking about the UI needs to be re-engineered to work on a smaller screen. The controls have to be re-engineered to work with the buttons available on the Steam Deck. UI in particular. Can you imagine playing? They keep showing off the Steam Deck playing Disco Elysium. Can you imagine reading all that text on that tiny little screen?
Yeah, the text is kind of small on a big TV, so
Yeah.
that would be unideal. I would say the game needs to be patched where it just takes up all the screen, but there's so many games on Steam, even 10% of those being patched is unrealistic. So it's tough to say.
I think it's a wait and see. I think the one thing I would say that, makes me feel better about this, because my initial reaction when I first heard about this was, "God, well, I remember Steam machines and that didn't work out. So whatever. But it's nice that this time they have like a dedicated Steam Deck. It's not like they have every PC producer known to man putting out their own version of the Steam Deck. So I think that is one smart move in the right direction from a business standpoint. And I think it's obviously a very compelling thing to have your entire Steam library available. Whereas if you've played on the Switch, that's a separate ecosystem, and if you play games on the PC and you want to play it on the Switch, you also had to buy that on the Switch. And I know there are plenty of people who did that. So I mean, that's cool. I'm just very wait and see. When these start to come out in the later part of this year and people start to get their hands on them, I'll be very curious to see how the lay person reacts.
Well, I know that they're trying to implement some of the Steam controller ideas, like the touchpads and stuff. So I'm curious. I've never used a Steam controller, so I'm kind of curious to see if that actually makes those traditionally PC only games playable. I doubt it, but I've heard the Steam controller is surprisingly okay. So I guess we'll see. I guess day one I'll download Civilization and let you know. But for the record, I'll just put it out there. I have the 500 gigabyte one on pre-order, the most expensive SKU with
Someone's spoiled.
yep, that's me. Glare-proof screen. I don't even, so.
So do you know, like, because aren't there windows for when these are shipping? Do you know what window you're in? Like,
They
when you
haven't
should
told me.
expect?
They haven't told
Okay.
me.
And is it? The other question is it an OLED screen or is it just like a?
It just says glare resistant, so I don't know.
Okay, all right. So no, but
Yeah, they probably would over advertise it if it was OLED, wouldn't
I
they?
just want to know if it's. I would hope it'd be a better screen than the standard Switch or Switch Lite.
Well,
Would be my hope.
I think it is. That's one of the features they advertise.
Okay, because those games would look kind of muddy on a Switch screen. I think some of those bigger games.
Well, again, they're all lower resolution, and on a smaller
Yeah.
screen, that doesn't really matter as much. But
I guess I don't really understand like how compatibility works. I guess so. Proton, from what I've gathered, is kind of like Wine for Mac, where it allows you to run games that wouldn't normally run on Linux. Is that right?
Well,
Okay.
for one, Wine is originally for Linux,
Oh.
not
Okay.
Mac.
All right.
So
Well, I know it
get
from
that
Mac.
straight.
All right. Sorry. I'm just glad I had the name right. uh,
but Valve says that they're expanding Proton or whatever.
but then, like,
we'll
well, that's
see.
fine.
We'll
That
see.
part is fine. But I heard that some games, like with anti-cheat software, won't run. Is that right?
I would hope that if they're really updating it to be like support most things, I would hope they iron that out.
I mean, that would only apply to big multiplayer games,
Well, I ain't
which
playing
you
Team
wouldn't
Fortress
play.
2,
So
I
that's.
mean-
I mean, that probably wouldn't matter that much. I just for them, the concern would be, and like it was with the Steam Machine, there's all kinds of different Steam machines, so you had to make that choice, and then when you get one, well, how many games even run on Linux? So, you know, I I would just hope that most of the library, like at least 95%, runs on it. I would hope.
Yeah, I would
Well,
hope so.
prepare to be disappointed.
Well, I'm not getting one, so I'll only be disappointed for Derek. But I also don't think most of Derek's games will have that
I
problem.
think most of what I would play would probably work.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think you're
we're talking old
indies
and
and old
JRPGs.
games. Yeah.
So, like, I would be stunned if Persona 4 Golden doesn't work on it. In fact, I would consider it a failure on their part if it doesn't. I kind of don't know about FF14. I kind of hope it doesn't because portable FF14 would possibly ruin my life. But we'll see. Regardless, I think it is an interesting idea.
I'm glad the Switch has competition, even if I don't think it's serious competition.
It's for different audiences.
Yeah, it is the AEW to the Switch's WWE, except for I think the Switch is far more competent than the WWE.
I would agree with that.
But let's not talk wrestling.
No,
Yeah,
we're on
let's,
dangerous territory here.
Yeah. But AEW Rampage.
Also making news this past week is the idea that the states of California, Colorado, Hawaii, Oregon, Vermont, and Washington had quote-unquote banned gaming PCs, which of course turned out to be alarmist nonsense. Some pre-made PCs are banned from sale in these states because, despite a 5-year period before this legislation took effect, they still use outdated and inefficient power supply units. Gamers Nexus posted a very thorough video debunking the clickbait wildfire that this policy has created. Let me just say, folks, if you ever needed a reason to build your own PC instead of paying a premium for a crappy pre-built, now is your chance.
Yeah, no kidding. I fell into the clickbait myself. I was like, oh man, they're banning them, but it makes more sense when you put it out like that. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I think that people who are acting like kind of self-righteous about Dell should be able to sell whatever they want. There are regulations on cars, on home appliances, all sorts of things that you buy and use every day in any state in America, and you do not care about the efficiency regulation because those manufacturers comply with those regulations, and the most you notice is you're saving on your electricity bill. But Dell comes along and they intentionally neglect to comply with this very low bar set by this legislation, and are now facing the consequences. And all of a sudden, it's government takeover. They're gonna kick down your door and rip out your GPU or something.
Son, we heard you were playing Crisis. It's kind of scummy that people kind of just ran with it if there was more to the story, And Dell should be ashamed that they were given so much notice. Like, we'll
And
worry
on
about
top
it
of
some other
that,
day.
these Alienware machines they're peddling suck. You're paying way too much money for a crappy PC, and the idea, it's like console fanboyism coming to PC with the Alienware fanboy.
I remember someone sent me a screenshot when this first broke, and my first takeaway was not like the banishment because I didn't see that till afterwards. My takeaway was seeing like $2,500 for like a 2070 computer. Like, that's a ripoff. Like that's not like if you're gonna do that, you gotta at least go 3080, I would think.
And a crappy PSU on top of it.
Of course, Alienware would be the company to fuck it up because they're just scam artists.
Yeah, I mean, for reference, I've been building PCs for years now. I have never bought a PSU that did not already comply. Like, I think, every PC I've built since I was in college, at least, complies with this regulation. Chances are, and if you've already bought one of these PCs, you're grandfathered in, you have nothing to worry about. It's specifically pre-made PCs made with sub-quality parts. So just go out and buy yourself some decent parts for cheap.
Build it yourself. It's very easy to do.
I just don't trust myself.
And also, you could probably there are probably stores where you could take all the parts if you don't trust yourself and pay them to put it together.
I guarantee you, Micro Center does that.
Yes, so I
but
think
that's not an
still
option
better
for everyone. But yeah.
No, but there are PC repair stores in a lot of places.
Well, yeah, but I mean, look, I understand everyone says it's easy, but I am so bad. Like, I can't even do origami.
Literally like putting together Legos.
I'm like, well,
yeah, one of these days, man, I'm just gonna have to go over to your house and like show you how it's done or something, because I think you're like way too scared.
You should open up. I should show you this PC that Setzer gave me, and open it up and show you just how like easy to read it. Like, this one is pretty old too, like 8 years. And when you open it up, it's still just like you can see all the places where things need to go. It's all very easy. I put in a solid state drive, and it couldn't have been simpler.
I installed a graphics card once.
Yeah, see how easy that was?
That was
Just
easy.
pop it in.
But my issue was I originally
It's like popping in a SNES cartridge.
I originally bought a superior graphics card to the one I had, and it didn't have, I don't know, it had like plugins to the PSU, and I didn't know how to replace my PSU, so it was.
Oh, but that's easy. You just unscrew it. That's like the easiest part to change out.
Well, I think I bought a crappy like pre-built sort of thing. This was back in 2010, so I don't know.
PSU, PS2.
Because I bought it because it said
name's Bender.
I think what scares me most is the wires. It just feels like it'd be a mess.
They're big, goofy wires with fun colors.
I know, but I feel like it'd be a mess.
Have you ever seen a SATA cable?
I have seen. I just look. Again.
Gosh, you don't even need to worry about that anymore with NVMe.
Setzer's right. I just need to be shown it in person and show that it's see that it's easy. But for the time being, I don't need an upgrade at the moment, so it'll be a little bit. I have a 1080 that's still kicking. It plays pretty much everything I need to at 60 or above, so no need.
Well, my graphics card can play Donkey Kong 94, so I think I'm good.
But yes, I can.
At 60 frames.
I can't ray trace, so that's a shame. But
come on. You got a PS5 and a Series X. You already know ray tracing's whatever.
It's a meme.
Yeah, well, when applied well, it's cool. It's when it's applied well, it's pretty cool. But I mean, it's not like you can live without it.
When you turn on ray tracing in a medieval, man, that's what changed my mind about ray tracing.
Yeah, I gotta I wish I had. Maybe when it gets a console release one day.
And finally this week, GamesIndustry.biz's Christopher Drink interviewed former PlayStation boss Sean Layden and Streamline Media CEO Alexander Fernandez about the creative stagnation of video games and the applicability of video game technology to other industries, what they call gaming's third epoch. Did you guys have a chance to read this article?
I did. I think some of it went over my head. Because I was like, a lot of it was like, what are they talking about? But,
Very businessy.
yeah. From what I gather, they're just saying, like, fewer studios equals less diversity in game.
That's part of it. You know, his point is that as the cost to make a game balloons, the power is with the publisher to dictate what kind of games gets made, right?
Yeah.
So, like, you know, his example was a publisher might tell an indie studio who's making a really cool game, go to GoFundMe and get this amount of money, and then we'll cover the rest. And that naturally skews that creative vision. You know, Sean Layden specifically gives the examples of Parappa and Vib Ribbon.
Which I thought was hilarious given what Sony
yeah.
has done to that studio.
Yeah. And that he's like, you know, these games will not be made anymore.
He's right.
And when you have to pander to, you know, even GoFundMe or Kickstarter, even crowdfunding has its picadillos, right?
Yes.
And when you have to pander to a big publisher especially, those kinds of things just won't get made. And if they do and you're successful, well, now the kind of business climate is get acquired by one of these mega publishers, and then they'll just have you pumping out the same kind of stuff that you were avoiding in the first place, right?
They'll put you in like the Call of Duty mines or whatever the equivalent is.
Yeah. I mean, you'll make some beautiful indie game, and then 5 years later you'll get bought out and spend the rest of your life making skins for Apex Legends, right?
Yes.
So Fernandez's point was kind of that a lot of the technology behind video games has, you know, lent itself to this like, I think he calls it like engagement culture or something. But video games have these really rabid fan bases, right? And now other industries like fashion, education, even healthcare are trying to figure out how can we leverage that technology to, you know, tap into that engagement to create these engaging experiences. So one of the examples he gives is an FDA-approved video game for treating ADHD, right? Or a digital fashion show that lets people interact with the fashion directly, right?
So it sounds like other industries are trying to do what like the U.S. Army was trying to get into, where they'd have like
kinda, yeah,
interactive training simulators.
But less propaganda.
Depending on your viewpoint,
Well,
I suppose.
Yeah, I would say that's just as much propaganda as anything.
Yeah. Less nationalistic propaganda, more
There we go.
industry-specific
More
propaganda.
corporate propaganda.
Yeah.
And you know, he talks about kind of the metaverse idea that's come back around lately, thanks to the Zuck. But this idea of like, you know, of a federated experiential technology, right? Which has a lot of overlap with video games. And so their point overall is that the monification of video games is kind of pushing us into this space where in order to grow the market, they need to start making new kinds of games, and those kinds of what we call games, you know, may use video game technology for things like flight training simulators, psychological medication, you know, therapeutic experiences, fashion marketing, stuff like that, right? That's going to be the way forward for video games, is creating experiences outside of what we would traditionally call a video game, using that video game technology.
That sounds awfully familiar to when the Kinect came out. People were talking about that sort of thing. But I'm not saying they're wrong, by the way. It's just very similar.
I mean, I would say the Kinect was more like, you know, here's how... Like, when I think of the Kinect, I always go back to Kinectimals and Mass Effect Kinect Edition or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like you're playing a traditional video game with voice commands and waving your hands around, right?
But they would go on to adapt that technology for like medicine stuff. Like
Yeah.
So I feel like that's kind of similar in that regard.
Yeah, conceptually, yeah.
It'll be interesting to see games expand in that route, but truth be told, I think I'm just an old person, and I like my games to play like games and not necessarily teach me skills. So I don't know if I'll be on board for this crazy stuff down the line, but there's billions of games out there, so I guess it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth noting what he's talking about is getting people who have, like, no interaction with video games. How do we get them into those kinds of technological experiences?
Yeah.
What is it about video games in particular that these people don't want to touch? Is it the controller? You know, are they just not interested in games of that nature? And if not, you know, how can we repurpose video game technology into
Alright, I
less
have an
of a
idea.
game?
I have an idea.
Yeah.
Alright, stop me if you've heard
Serious.
this before. Alright. So, controller,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's a rectangle.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got like one big button on it. And
Mhm.
maybe a D-pad.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a trigger on the back.
Mm-hmm.
Point it at the screen,
It's
move it around.
it's funny you mentioned that because that's the exact
What do you
same
think?
thing I thought when he said that about the controller thing.
Well, you think he like pointed at a little IR sensor perhaps?
Maybe or
Sits on your TV with like the world's thinnest wire.
or two candles.
Wire so thin that a hitman has probably used it to strangle someone in a past timeline. What do you
Yeah,
think?
I think that's a bad idea. I think it would
Okay.
be a disaster for the potential console.
Okay, but what if you could attach a joystick to it
Oh.
through its butt,
Oh, really? And you give it like a cool
Like-
name, like a nunchuck?
like a butt plug? Well, I was gonna call it the butt plug.
Oh,
but
the butt plug.
I think your idea is much more marketable.
Oh, okay.
I think we might get some confusion on the market if we called it the butt plug.
Maybe.
I like where you're going.
Wait
with
a
this.
minute, I wanted a butt plug. Why is this joystick here? I can't shove this in my butt.
I like where you're going with this, but hear me out. Okay, what if you could also attach something like a clothespin to your finger,
Oh,
and it would read your heartbeat?
yeah.
Holy shit.
Okay.
That's the
Perhaps
Wait,
future.
no.
It's your
No, no,
vitality.
no. Even better. What if an iPad, but smaller screen, bigger body, kind of like a controller, but in the center is a 480p. No. 480i screen. It's got touch, but not capacitive touch. You need a stylus, and you can maybe do some TV stuff with it. I don't really know. That part I'll work on.
Okay, I think it might work, but how about this? You have to stay within 20 feet of a box that's plugged into your TV.
And what happens when you get out of that 20 feet?
It explodes.
You die.
Oh, that's great. Okay, that's a good idea.
Give me 20.
20 feet is generous, though, because that thing did not go 20 feet. Let me tell you, as someone who played it from closer than 20 feet, playing Breath of the Wild in bed on my Wii U tablet, nuh-uh. Not 20 feet.
This is a hypothetical conversation. This Wii U has no business
Oh!
here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
what's a
yeah.
Wii U?
I don't know. I have 3 of them, but I don't know what they do.
Is that some kind of VCR?
Sometimes I try to plug video games into it, and I don't get anything.
But these sorts of conversations are always interesting to me, but I never actually want to get hands-on with what they're talking about. It's fun to see the technology, but you know what I mean?
I think these have a great place in the future at PAX, where I can interact with them for a few minutes and then never touch them again.
Why would you want to at PAX? You're going to get, like, eye disease.
Yeah, you're gonna get pink eye.
That's the
man.
least of your worries.
That'll do it for this week, I imagine. You can reach us on Twitter at AllTodayPod or on email alltodaypodcast@gmail.com. This is Derek.
Setzer?
And Cheston.
We will see you next time. Goodbye.
Adios.
See ya.
La 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 la